Buried tubes pump air at underground temperatures, 13 degrees Celsius, into the structures. Vegetables can be grown all year. So once a week, all winter long, neighbors can come to the farm and pick up a share of the harvest. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. You can find 2 videos about Echo City Farms, including one about the composting worms, at voaspecialenglish.com.
Is the Agriculture Report. Companion planting is the idea that some kinds of plants can help each other grow. Plants that are compatible generally need similar soil, nutrients, and moisture levels. Advice about which plants are compatible is sometimes based more on tradition than fact. But experts say there is evidence to support certain combinations. These can improve harvests, reduce disease, and help control pests by attracting helpful insects. For example, some kinds of soil bacteria take nitrogen from the air and make it into a form that plants can use. The plants hold or fix the nitrogen in their roots. Legumes are especially good at nitrogen fixing. Then, any crops that share the same space as the legumes can get the nitrogen as the roots decompose. Beans and potatoes can also share territory well because their roots reach different levels in the soil. Deep-rooted vegetables get nutrients and moisture from lower down in the soil, so they do not compete with plants with shallower roots. But some plants placed together can harm each other's development. For example, tomatoes do not like wet soil, but watercress does, so you would probably want to keep them separated. Some kinds of produce should be kept apart even after being harvested. This is because of ethylene gas. Ethylene is a plant hormone that can cause some kinds of produce to ripen too quickly. This risk of ripening too soon is why markets often separate high ethylene producing foods from those that are sensitive to the gas. But if you put an apple in a bag with a green banana, the ethylene from the apple will make the banana ripen sooner. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Is the Agriculture Report in Special English. Tall or short, fat or thin, natural, plastic, or metal. Whatever the choice, the National Christmas Tree Association says Americans bought over 40 million Christmas trees last year. Christmas trees are grown and harvested in all 50 states. Christmas time in the city usually means buying trees already cut and waiting to be sold. But some people like to drive to tree farms. Others wait for their tree to come to them, or they order one from the pages of a catalog, or even on the internet. Some say the easiest thing of all is to buy an artificial tree with Christmas lights already on it. The National Christmas Tree Association represents growers and sellers of most of the farm-raised Christmas trees in the United States. The group estimates that 9.5 million artificial trees were sold in 2011 compared to almost 31 million natural ones. So people still enjoy the appearance and smell of natural trees more. The group says people paid an average of around $35 for a natural Christmas tree and twice as much for an artificial one. But artificial trees, which mostly come from China, can be reused for years. Most natural trees are cut up and recycled, but some people buy trees that can be planted. The association says 16% of people who bought natural trees last year chose them at a farm and cut the tree themselves. 84% bought them already cut. Most Christmas trees are now grown on farms instead of in forests. The trees take 6 to 10 years to grow. In some states, less than half the planted trees survive the weather conditions to become someone's Christmas tree. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Special English Agriculture Report. An evergreen tree is a Christmas tradition in many American homes. The tree is usually a pine or fir, dressed with lights and other colorful decorations. Families might buy a cut tree or go to a tree farm and cut one down themselves. Some people bring a live tree in a pot into their home for the holidays and then put it back outdoors. Some people rent a Christmas tree. Companies might bring the same live tree to the same family year after year. Or the tree might get planted in a park or someplace else where it could help the environment. There are some trees that can be reused year after year because they are made of plastic or metal. Another popular evergreen this time of year is the mistletoe plant. It has small white berries and leaves that feel like leather. The traditional Christmas mistletoe is native to Europe. Ancient Druids believed mistletoe had magical powers. The plant can be found growing on apple trees, lindens, maples, and poplars. Mistletoe is a parasitic plant. It connects itself to a tree and steals nutrients and water. Today, mistletoe is best known as an excuse to steal a kiss at a Christmas party. Kissing is a tradition if two people stand under mistletoe hung in a doorway. Another plant that many people connect with Christmas is the poinsettia. Poinsettias are native to Mexico. They can be white or pink, but most are bright red. They are named after the first American ambassador to Mexico. Joel Poinsett liked them enough to send some back to the United States. Babies or pets that chew on poinsettias might get sick. But experts say the plant is not as poisonous as some people think. Like millions of other houses, the home of America's first president was decorated for Christmas. George Washington's Mount Vernon estate is in Virginia. Visitors heard stories about what Christmas was like at Mount Vernon in the 18th century. The museum, where visitors began their tour, was decorated with Christmas trees. Yet Mount Vernon, would not have had Christmas trees during the late 1700s when Washington led the country. They did not become popular in the United States until the 1800s. Visitors learned that in Washington's time, there was greenery inside the mansion, but that was probably the extent of the decorations. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Agriculture Report. Organic farming avoids the use of chemical pesticides and man-made fertilizers. Supporters say organic farming is better for the environment than other methods. But studies have shown that organic farming often produces less food per hectare. That lower yield means feeding the world organically would require more land. But good farmland is limited, and scientists say deforestation from the clearing of land for agriculture is already a problem for climate change. In a new study, researchers wanted to measure the difference between conventional and organic yields. So they combined the results of 66 earlier studies. They found that some organic farms can yield almost as much as conventional farms, but most cannot. The findings were reported in the journal Nature. The study's lead author was Verena Seifert of McGill University in Canada. She says conventional farms usually have higher yields than organic ones. But some activities, environmental conditions, and even crops can narrow the differences. On average, organic farms produced 25% less compared to conventional farms. But yields of organic fruits and other perennial crops nearly equaled the yields from conventional ones. So did the yields of legumes such as soybeans. Legumes produce some of their own nitrogen fertilizer. However, organic vegetables and cereal crops had a lot lower yields compared to conventionally grown crops. Ms. Seifert says the soil on organic farms holds water better, and that can reduce the yield difference. Also, organic farmers can improve their yields by making sure crops get enough fertilizer. But increasing the nitrogen is harder to do organically using just animal waste and crop rotations. Organic farmers rotate food crops with plants that fertilize the soil. But while these cover or fertilizer crops are growing, food crops have to be grown on other land. And if farmers use manure, they have to feed the animals that produce it. And that requires grazing land or cropland. The United Nations says world demand for food will grow 70% by the middle of the century.